Hello, everyone. My name is Regan J. Mashburn. I am the host of the Unauthorized Teacher podcast. I am here with my very, very first guest. This is a very, very special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Shannon Mashburn, and yes, I am the mother of Regan J. Mashburn.
Taught me everything I know. Well, not everything.
Not
You're from.
everything. I'm not going to take credit for a lot.
And what do you teach?
I teach theater arts at a high school.
And how long have you been teaching for?
I have been teaching, I just finished my 28th year.
Wow, congratulations.
Thanks.
And I just wanna get kind of a picture of where you've come from, and so I wanna know, what year did you graduate high school?
I graduated in the 100th class of my high school in 1990.
Awesome, 90s. She had the wonderful privilege of being in the in her 20s in the 90s,
Yes.
just like the Friends.
Yes. Yes, I grew up with the Friends,
Yep.
absolutely. Yeah, my childhood was the disco era. My adolescence and, teen years were in the '80s, and then my college years were the grunge years. Me and Nirvana and the Friends gang.
What an aspiration to be.
Yeah.
Alright, and what kinda so I wanna know, what type of school did you attend when you were in school? So, was it a public school, private school, charter school?
I attended public school K through 12, and then I went to, um, a junior college that was a public junior college, state funded, and then I went to a state university. So, public
Awesome.
school all
Public
the
school
way.
all the way. And about how big was your student body size in your high school graduation class?
There were 376 in
Alri
my graduating class.
alright. And now I wanna know, what type of school do you teach at?
I, currently teach in the same town where I grew up. I did move away contrary to popular belief. I did go live life in the big city in college, but came back home, and I currently and have always taught in a Title I high school, that was one of the city rivalries, back when I was in high school.
And about how big is your student body size?
Our student body size, ranges between 1,800 and 2,000 students.
That's a pretty big student body. Big.
Yeah, yeah, and we're honestly the smallest high school right now in town.
Wow.
Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest difference between schools today and when you went to school?
I think the use of technology, because of course, when I was a kid, when I was in high school, and even when I was in college, computers were not personally owned. My dad actually had one of the very first personal home computers in, my friend group. All of my friends would come over, and my dad had a computer because he was running and printing and advertising business out of our home, and they were like, "Whoa," and just amazed that we had not only a computer, but also a copy machine, and my friends from high school still talk about the copy machine, but we had 4 channels on TV, and I remember when cable TV first
Yeah.
came out, and that was we were also I grew up pretty privileged, not wealthy, but pretty privileged. I was lucky, very comfortable, and, we were my friends would come to my house because my parents got cable TV and then the VCR, and, but having technology at school, the biggest piece of technology at school was the overhead projector that,
Mm.
the teacher would turn on, and you had to turn out all the lights and then could barely even read the vis-a-vis marker, and now, kids I'm a one-to-one campus where kids, they all have Chromebooks.
I don't think my students could imagine life without a Chromebook,
I know.
but then they mistreat them like they don't care. So, all right. I want to know, what teacher inspired you the most and why?
I have a handful of teachers, and I have written them all letters. I have talked to a few of them face to face, but the first teacher, I I was always the kid that sat on the front row and wanted the teacher's approval. And honestly, my teachers, with the exception of my 3rd grade teacher that kind of looked like Roz from Monsters Inc. And she kind of sounded like that too. Now that I think about it, but
Mike way
yeah,
down.
yeah, Shannon Mashburn, or it was Sanders back then anyway. But um, I was always a good kid, and my teachers really loved me, and I really really loved them. I didn't know that there was another option though, but there were a few teachers that really were just extraordinary. I was put in advanced English in 5th and 6th grade, and I'm going to say their names. I'm going to call them out because I think these heroes deserve to be recognized. And even though I had some really great teachers, Patricia Bowers in 5th and 6th grade, she saw in me something special because I was not the athletic kid. I wasn't the pretty skinny blonde kid, with the fancy bows in her hair. And I wasn't the smartest kid. I was a very average, pretty average looking B plus kid. I was never straight A's, and I never really stuck out in any way, but she saw me in a pretty difficult time in my life. I mean, because puberty is hard.
Puberty is so hard. I was just reminded.
Puberty is hard on the kids. It's
Oh.
hard on the adults that are around the kids. It's gross. And I had a hard time, and she made me believe that I was good. And then I get into a middle school, which was junior high then. Man, I felt like I was there, man. I loved it. I finished puberty the summer before I entered 7th grade, because back then elementary school was K through 6, and then junior high was 7, 8, and 9. But over the summer, I lost a lot of weight. I developed. I got a new haircut. I got rid of the glasses and got contacts, and I got braces, which braces were really cool. And in the 7th grade, all the cool kids had braces, and I was thin and I felt good. And I was no longer the frumpy, weird, artsy kid that didn't run track. And I found a friend group, and I found myself, and there were some incredible teachers in middle school that pushed me then and took over from where Miss Bowers left off and pushed me to learn more and to be okay with what I was passionate about, which was theater. And I wanted to act and I wanted to dance, and there was not an outlet for youth to act, because of course in elementary and then in my junior high there weren't theater classes, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I mean, when I was little, I would put on shows and I would invite my neighbors without my parents knowing, and all my neighbors would show up for the show. Bernice DeShazo, who was an English teacher that saw that in me and would give me scripts to read and would work things into lesson plans where I could do little speeches. Rick DeVoe, Dr. DeVoe, who was my biology teacher, and he had a lot of really fun projects. And I was not a scientist at all. I am very artistic, and so science and math were real hard. But Dr. DeVoe would do different projects, and he taught us about how it feels to be handicapped. He always had really fun ways to teach different lessons. He wanted to teach us about disability. And so it was an optional extra credit project, but we had to come in, 30 minutes before school, and he used medical tape and taped our thumbs down, taped our thumbs to the palms of our hands. And we had to go through school all day, and then we would come in after school and he would cut the tape off. But we had to figure out how to write. We had to figure out how to eat, how to open doors, how to go to the bathroom,
Ooh.
how to carry our books, and it was really eye-opening because at the end of the day, my hands hurt so badly, but I got it
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
because then he had a discussion with us then the next day, Now tell me what your experience was, what was hard, what was easy, and we all talked about it in real time. Some of us still with the tape marks on our hands because medical tape doesn't wash off very well, and it was just like real time, real life lessons.
Yeah. Those sticks with you, right?
Yeah, oh, it absolutely.
Yeah.
Now all of these, yeah, well, 40 years later,
Right. Right.
it sticks with me. I mean, he was an odd guy.
Hmm.
His room looked like a jungle. He had all of these giant plants, and he had big giant fish tanks
Ooh.
with huge, huge fish in them, and he had a turtle. I know he had a turtle. Um, and it was just his classroom was like going into Jumanji.
I once subbed at a classroom like that, and I told every class, "If that snake goes missing, so will Miss Regan. If the snake cages get open, I'm gone. You're on your own."
And Dr. DeVoe, I mean, when you were in class, he to give you a picture, he's a lot like Doc Brown from Back to the Future.
Hmm.
Always just kind of doing science, and his mind is going a million miles an hour, and he had this crazy long hair, and and always were wearing these bright colored Hawaiian shirts, and um you never knew what was going to come out of his mouth, but man, you learned a lot.
Well, shout out to Dr. DeVoe,
Dr. DeVoe, he was
pillar of
awesome.
our community.
Yeah.
Well, I wanna know, why did you want to become a teacher?
I wanted to become a teacher because teachers very honestly were the greatest influence in my life.
Hmm.
Again, I wasn't athletic. I was artistic, and I wanted something desperately that nobody could figure out how to give me. I mean, my parents were great,
Mm.
you know, but they didn't know how to give me what I
Mhm.
wanted, what it turns out I needed, which was a theater education because it just wasn't an option. I don't know. It was teachers that first I felt seen.
Yeah. There's a billboard that I drive by, says something along the lines of, "Children have hidden potential and teachers know how to unlock it."
And that's
Mhm.
exactly true. I grew up in a house. My mother always played music. Both of my parents really loved music. I grew up listening to, the work of Gene Krupa and Tommy Dorsey and the big band era music because that's what my dad loved, and Willie Nelson because my dad loved it. But I also grew up, my earliest memories, and they have to be when I was as early as 3 years old because I know it was before my brother was born. I remember my mother playing the record albums of the golden age musicals, Rodgers and Hammerstein. Uh, my first songs that I remember are from Oklahoma and Paint Your Wagon.
Mm.
So I was exposed to musical theater long before I ever saw it, but it was a teacher that first took me to the theater.
Mm.
I don't know, with the exception of Roz from Monsters Inc. I don't know that I ever had a teacher that did not see me for me.
Hmm.
I was lucky.
Yeah,
I was lucky, and I wanted to be that.
for somebody
Yeah.
else. It's beautiful. Well, I want you to tell me about a time when you have felt particularly successful as a teacher.
I'm honestly coming off the most competitively successful year of my entire career.
Which, by the way, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, my department really grew leaps and bounds this year in both numbers and success, and um I'm really proud of what my kids accomplished this year. But I do have to say the big successes, like having an award-winning play, watching my kids walk up onto the stage to receive medals,
Mm.
being named winning play and going all the way to region, which is one step before state, having, and I'm just gonna brag, but having 12 national qualifiers
Yeah, it's
in
huge.
Texas Thespians, and having a state qualifier in technical theater, all of that is fantastic. 17 theater scholars, all of that is really great. But I also teach in a school with a very high ESL population.
For those of us who don't know what ESL is.
It's English as a second
Thank
language.
you.
A large portion of our, and I wish I knew the number, but I think it's like 223 kids are refugee kids. And, in a school of 1,800 kids, that's a big number. I mean, that's a big number anyway, but, and they come to us, some of them never having stepped inside the school, some of them speaking absolutely zero English. And I usually don't get those first years because theater,
Mm.
but sometimes I do get those emerging, English students, and I gotta I've had a lot of really cool moments where, I'll do one lesson and all of a sudden that light bulb comes on. Seeing, getting my rosters for the next year and seeing that some of those kids that I thought hated theater are coming back for a second year. I've got I've got a kid that that oh, he drives everybody bonkers. And for the sake of anonymity, I'm just gonna call him Freddie, my love.
Hmm.
And I mean, he is so severely ADHD. The kid cannot sit still, but he told my principal that he really loves me.
Aw.
I made a connection with him, and I don't know how or why, but I'm his favorite teacher, and he wants to take my class next year. I had a conversation with my principal. No, you know what? Let's go ahead and push Freddie, my love, into year 2, and
Sometimes that push is what they need too.
well, he needs to be up.
Yeah.
And in theater too, we're up
Yeah.
and we're acting. But I have to say, probably the story that I am most proud of, again, I had great success, but I'm gonna go all the way back to one of my very first years. And there's a kid, and we're just going to, for anonymity again, I'm just gonna call him Jay. Jay came into theater. His counselor stuck him in there because he needed a fine arts class. He was angry at the world. He hated school. He was planning on dropping out the day he turned 17. He was on track to be jumped into a gang. Gang life was what he knew, and it was his ambition. And he was a rough kid. He luckily had a very supportive, very loving mom who was doing what she could with very, very, very little. And he had some pretty terrible influences in his life. And the things that he had seen in his very young life are things that you don't even want to imagine. And he sat with his arms crossed and refused to do anything. And he made a 63, which I was like, at least he did that.
Yeah.
But he made a 63, which failed the first 6 weeks. But I don't know. Like Miss Bowers, saw potential in me. He was a solid B plus student. I saw potential in Jay, and I don't know why, but there was something. There was a spark. And so I changed the way that I addressed him, and I really started laying it on pretty thick with the positive reinforcement. All of a sudden, he started really working. And the end of the second 6 weeks, he made a 93 in my class, not because I gave it to him. He really earned it.
Wow.
And I called his mother the day that I put in my grades, and I said, Miss so and so, this is Mrs. Mashburn. I'm Jay's theater arts teacher. And she breathed a big sigh and she said, what did he do now? And I said, well, let me tell you what he did. He brought his grade up 30 points in my class, and he now has an A in theater arts. And there was silence. And then I realized that she was weeping.
Oh.
And she said, Miss Mashburn, thank you. Nobody has ever said anything kind about my son. I mean, I think it was either my first or second year teaching. And I realized in that moment that not only had I affected that kid,
Mhm.
but his family.
Yeah.
And it was at
With
that
just
moment.
one phone call.
Yeah. And honestly, it was as easy. I didn't change my teaching strategy. I wasn't a great teacher. I was a brand new teacher. I barely knew how to stand in front of a class. Luckily, I'm an actor and can, fake my way. But I realized the weight
Mm.
of my role in these kids' lives and the importance of my role in these kids' lives, which I mean, I knew in my heart because I knew how important my teachers had been to me. Fast forward into the end of the year, and Jay ended my class with an A average in both
Wow.
semesters
Go Jay.
and signed up for theater 2, and then signed up for theater 3, and then signed up for theater 4, and spent 4 years with me and never wanted to step on stage. He was never willing to step on stage. He was never willing to build a set or learn how to do the lights. He just wanted to be with me,
Aw.
and he would do anything I told him to do except for act. If I told him to go, fold a fitted sheet, he would do it terribly, but he would do it. If I told him, "I need you to stand in front and hand out programs," he would stand there, and he did not miss a single performance.
Wow.
And his senior year for our fall show, um, I let him run my box office selling tickets, taking money. And I had a mom who came up to me and she said, "Hey, that kid that you have running box office, are you really sure you want him taking the money?" And I went, "Yeah, why?" She goes, "Well, aren't you afraid he's going to steal it?" And I said, "Oh, he won't steal from me." And she goes, "Well, how do you know?" And I said, "He might steal from other people, but he's not going to steal a penny from me." And he didn't. Every dollar was accounted for, and he was so proud, and he walked across the stage
Mm.
as a graduate. And the next year after he graduated, there was a knock at my classroom door, and I opened it, and he was standing there. And I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And he said, "I just wanted to come and say hi and to give you this." And he handed me a white envelope that had a card inside of it. Didn't have anything written on it. And I started to open it, and he said, "No, don't open it while I'm here. Open it, after I leave. But I just wanted to come and tell you thank you."
Mm.
And I said, "Thank you for what?" And he said, "Miss Mashburn, you don't understand. I graduated because of you." He said, "I did it for you and for my mom."
Mm.
And he said, "And now I also wanted to tell you I enrolled in college today."
Mm.
And it was a technical college because he wanted to become a plumber. And I am very happy to say that that man is now making twice, if not 3 times as much money as I'm making. And that man still shows up on Teacher Appreciation Week or sometimes on Mother's Day or sometimes on a random day and will bring me a bottle of Crown or a box of Dos Equis or
He knows exactly what you like. You love.
and and he goes, "Do you need anything? I'll give you anything." And now he has moved on from the funny trick of bringing his teacher alcohol, which, a student teacher, that's an inappropriate gift, but he's 40 years old now. I mean, it's
Yeah.
perfectly okay. To now he is now sponsoring every year. He sponsors one of my students fully
Wow.
to go to theater camp.
Wow.
Uh,
Way to go, Jay.
yeah,
Shout out to Jay.
yeah, he's awesome.
I have a similar experience. I got this student about maybe around Halloween time, and he did not know very much English, and he was in English, 6th grade English with me. And we were reading Tuck Everlasting, and he sat right there, right by me as we were reading. He sat the closest as he could to me and followed along. And the next semester, when we read Wrinkle in Time, he handwrote an entire 2-page essay in English for me. And I will keep that forever because I look at that and I just,
Yeah.
you know, eh,
No, listen, every teacher I know, every single teacher I know, whether they're a first year teacher or a 50-year teacher and everywhere in between, every single teacher has a file folder or a notebook or a box where stuff like that is there. It's everything from an essay they wrote you to a Post-it note that they put on your door, a picture they drew you.
If my kids are listening, all of that is hanging up in my office in my house. I couldn't throw it away.
And if
It's
any
still
of
there.
my kids are listening, know that it's all there. My file is big.
Well, I want to hear, what is an example of good leadership or good admin?
So the principal that hired me is one of the finest principals I've ever worked for, the finest men I've ever met. He led with kindness, but he also had very high expectations of not only us as teachers, but also of the students. He was in the hall during passing periods, and if a kid, if they had their pants sagging, he would stop them and make sure that they looked presentable. And these are kids that live below the poverty line, that don't have the fanciest clothes, but he made them, look, you might have a hole in your jeans, but you're going to pull them up and you're going to look like a young man. You know, you might not have the fanciest dress, but you're going to wear it and you're not going to look, like somebody's trash. You're going to look nice. You're going to have some self-respect, and you're also going to treat people right. And that's the way that he expected us, as teachers. But he also wanted us to not just respect each other, but he wanted us to support each other and think of the entire faculty as a family. And he promoted that. He was fantastic. And my principal that I've got now is, even though I love that first principal a lot, my principal that I've got now is the most supportive human being I've ever experienced in my educational career.
Wow.
She goes over and above, and she is a spitfire. And she, if you are doing the right thing, she is 100% behind you. And if you are not doing the right thing, she is the first one to tell you, you know, to stop it. But then she's going to tell you her expectations, correct you, and then help you.
Yes.
She's not going to smack your hand and say bad, bad, and walk away. She's going to hold your hand through it. And again, she leads through kindness with very high expectations and leads by example. She's out there talking to the students just like that first principal did. She's out there, and she's funny and she's kind and she's supportive, but she's strict.
Yeah.
And that's what I think a leader needs to be. You need to be willing to get your hands dirty. You need to be able to correct with kindness. You need to be able to express your expectations and hold people accountable to those expectations and reward people when they reach those expectations too, which both of those principles above and beyond absolutely did.
Well, shout out to both of them.
Yeah.
If you're listening, thank you for all of the work that you've been doing.
Well, and at our award ceremony, I presented her with a crystal star, and I said before every show, and I said to her face to face, all of the success that this department has had, that my kids have had, this is what happens when a teacher feels supported and appreciated.
Yeah.
Because when a teacher feels supported and appreciated, that teacher can then pour that into their students.
Yeah.
When a teacher feels dogged and beat down, that's what they're going to pour into their students.
Yeah. The culture comes from the top down.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, I'm wondering if you could snap your fingers instantly and change anything about education for the better, just one thing, what would it be?
Testing.
Testing.
It would testing is, and I will say it's unpopular with the government, in my opinion, but it's very popular with teachers. Testing has ruined education. I did not keep track this past year, but in the 2 years previous to this, I did keep track, and we had 13 weeks with at least one standardized test. 2 years in a row. And I believe that it went up this year. I think we were more at like 15 or 16 weeks. And when you think about that, that's 2 full 6 weeks plus that are of class time and curriculum that's lost because kids are sitting and taking a 5-hour test that somebody who hasn't been in the classroom wrote.
Yeah, and not to mention the amount of stress.
The
For
stress that
what?
it puts on the students, the stress that it puts on the teachers,
Mhm.
because most of these standardized tests, um, teachers are not given the questions.
Yeah.
They just hope.
Yeah.
They just hope that they're teaching the right
Right.
stuff. And then the students are not prepared with those questions, or even the types of questions. And so the students don't know. And now there's so much testing, I cannot tell you the number of kids that said to my face, including one who is a very high achieving, both academically and athletically, high achieving kid in honors classes, advanced classes. He literally he found out that he failed one of his EOC classes in his math class, and his mom and I were trying to figure out why would he fail this test. That's so weird. That's not like him at all. And I asked him. I said, "Did you use the calculator?" And he goes, "Yeah." Well, did the program load correctly? Yeah. And he goes, "Okay, I'm going to be real with you. I didn't even really try
Mm.
because they take so many that they stop, pre-test and mid-test and post-test, and it's testing. It's got to go away."
Well, I have a funny story I wanna share with you because I think that you'll find this hilarious being a theater teacher.
Okay.
So I'm your child. I'm a theater kid. I grew up in the theater, and one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite Broadway shows is Billy Elliot. I love Billy Elliot. And one day
Again, a story about a teacher changing a
Mhm.
child's life.
Well, one day I was showing my kids a ballet because I wanted to teach them about the art of ballet and telling stories through dance. And I was walking towards the board, and my students go, "I just want to dance to the ballet." And I stopped in my tracks and I turned around and I said, "Are you quoting Billy Elliot?" And they looked at me and they looked at me like I was speaking French. And I said, "No, they can't be quoting Billy Elliot. They probably don't even know what Billy Elliot is." And I turned back around and then it dawned on me. Turned back around and I looked at them and I said, "All right, are you quoting Modern Family?" They were quoting Cam from Modern Family. So
Hey, shout out to TV for bringing Broadway into the mainstream.
I wanna know what is your funniest student story?
Oh my gosh, after 28 years of teaching, and I mean, before I was a teacher, I was a substitute for 2 years, and even before that, I had taught, youth theater classes, uh, in Denton, and, um, but it cracks me up when the students mimic me,
Mm, mhm.
and, I mean, I have a million hilarious stories.
That must
Um
be a developmental thing.
Yeah.
'Cause, I noticed my students did that too, and at first I thought they were but as I was watching them, I think it might be I don't know, maybe
Well, I don't know, because your students were 12, mine are 17 and 18, but they I was directing just a funny story from this year. I was directing our UIL one act play, and there's a moment where 2 of the characters have to they're young men at the start of the scene, and then over the course of literally one line that says, "The 2 men grew very, very old together." And just that one sentence, the actors have to go from young men to very, very old men. Have to go from, like, characters that are in their 20s to characters that are in their 80s in the course of one line, and I was like, "Okay." And I was trying to coach them through it, and they went, "No, no, no, we got this."
Mm.
Because I had them walking around their chairs and sitting down, and I wanted their rear ends to hit the chair on the word "together." And they go, "No, no, no, we got this." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so they walked around, and they both walked, and then they sat down and they were, and I went, "Okay, so what the 2 of you just did that exactly the same. what was your thought?" And they both looked at me and said, "Well, we just copied you." Now, for the record, let me just state, I am not 80 years old. I am not anywhere close to being 80 years old, but I am a former ballerina with former ballerina knees. But they
Oh,
were like, "We just copied you." And, um, it just and then when they have to get up from the chairs, they once again copied how I get up and down because I've got bad knees. Um, but they copied me again, and it just cracks me up because all of the kids were also in on the joke. The whole cast and crew were all in on the joke,
oh,
and we just shared that moment where they were mimicking me, but all of us were in on the joke, and so
yeah.
it was really funny. And then, of course, every time I leave my phone on my desk, they love to open up my camera,
Take
take
pictures.
pictures,
Mhm.
especially if I have left my phone on my desk and I've left the room. I always come back and I have pictures where they're holding my glasses or they're holding my pen or whatever, and they're mimicking my faces. So it cracks me up when they mimic me. I think it's
That's
hilarious.
that's funny. Well, I believe that you have prepared a letter for your
I
students.
have.
Would you like to read it?
Well, I will certainly try. So I sat down and I did some math before I read this. I sat down and I did just some real rudimentary math, and this number is an estimate at best, but I figure over the course of 28 years at my high school, because I've never left my high school, 28 years in the same hallway, I figured that I probably had upwards of 5,000 students,
Wow.
probably more than that,
Wow.
go in and out of my door. I mean, some of those students, probably 1,200 of them, honestly, have been with me for more than 2 years, some all 4 years. So this goes out to that student that's going to walk through my door for the first time ever in August, and that student that walked out of my door for the last time in 1999, which is my first graduation. Dear kids, I think back to all the classes, rehearsals, performances, and sweet moments that we have shared. So many times I wish that you could know just what was in my heart. Seeing you walk into my room on day one, all the way to the night that I watched you walk across the stage as a graduate, you were special. Starting a new year, I was always so excited. I spent hours preparing, imagining, wondering which of you would become dear in my heart and which of you would break it. Learning your names, hoping that I was pronouncing each one correctly, knowing that I was going to mess up at least one, and hoping that you would laugh about that. Every year, the same thoughts, the same routine, the same excitement, and the same anticipation. Who of these will I love the most? Well, dear one, the answer is you. Time was spent, lessons were taught, memories were made, good and bad. We all grew, we all changed, we all learned. Then, before we know it, comes the time that you walk away from me for the final time. Some after only 180 days, some after 4 really short years. And every time my heart breaks knowing that we are finished, hoping that I have given you enough, that I have done all I can to prepare you for whatever comes next, hoping that you are leaving better than you were before, knowing that you cannot possibly know how much I love you. You have left a piece of you with me. The pictures, the notes, the photographs, they all live in a folder in my desk. Your names are written on my life. My heart will always yearn for the day that you became mine, the day that you learned something new, the day that you took a chance and I saw the light in your eyes for the first time, the day that you knew you were safe to be who you truly are, the day you smiled. You make me so proud. Teaching is hard, but not how you think. Every year, we form a little family, and every year, that family has to say goodbye to one another. And every year, you take my heart with you. Whether you are from year 1 or year 28, And those who will walk through my door for the first time in the coming years know that you are remembered, you are cherished, and you are desperately loved. Now, my wish for you, be brave, be strong, never let the bad days win. Do the hard things. Be excited by a challenge. Read. Oh, for goodness sake, read. Listen to music. Be unabashedly you and never apologize for that. Dance. Laugh. Laugh way too loud. Live your passion. And never let weeds grow up around your dreams. Once a Mashburn kid, always a Mashburn kid.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Well, now I'm a mess.
Oh, it was so full of I can just feel the love that you have. So, thank you so much, and thank you for your time serving your students. You've gone a long way.
And I have a long way to go.
That's true. All right. Well, thank you so much for sticking with us. This has been the Unauthorized Teacher Podcast. Please be sure to give us a 5-star review on Spotify, Patreon, YouTube. Be sure to follow us on Instagram. That is the Unauthorized Teacher Podcast with no spaces. Be sure to put the "the" in there. I've noticed a lot of people have had trouble finding it because of the lack of the "the." I also want to give a shout out to my first 2 Patreon patrons. Shout out to Jessica Guerrero and Karen Collin. Thank you so much for following us on Patreon. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening.